My wife and I were able to pay off $57,000 in debt while building a six-figure portfolio in just 3 years. I'd like to tell you a little bit about that experience, everything we did wrong and wish we could have done right, what we learned, and how you can do it much better and differently. So if you're watching this video, I believe you probably have some debt that you're looking to pay off. And let me just start this entire thing by telling you, you can do it. You're not alone. This is not some crazy, negative, life-threatening thing. You can get over this, you can overcome it, you can pay it off. I understand having debt is horrible. You feel, deflated. It's a defeating kind of, feeling. And at the same time, it's just not a monetary thing. It does have financial toll, but it also has a physical, a mental, and emotional. So let me just say that if me and my wife can do it and we can get out of debt, that much debt, you can do it too. And I hope this video helps you do just that. So with my wife and I, it started right around the time we got engaged. Neither of us had a ton of financial knowledge or experience, and we were dealing with so many things that, credit cards were available, so why not use them? So we actually ended up lending money to someone, and it was almost $20,000. And then the rest really came because we decided to throw a pretty big and lavish wedding, which, when we look back at it now, we barely spend any time or get to see 10, 15, 20 of the people that we invited out of 150 of them. So yeah, if we could go back in time, you definitely do things a lot different. But between those two things is where most of that debt really came from. If this is the first one of my videos that you're watching, I just want to obviously thank you for your time, but just let you know that I am a certified FINRA educator and an investor, and just a guy who's looking to share some knowledge and experience about a lot of the past mistakes I've made and what I'm doing differently moving forward. These videos take me a ton of time to do. So between writing, research, actually filming, editing, publishing it, it's literally from the moment I start with some sort of idea to the moment it goes out, like weeks. So I would greatly appreciate it as I'm trying to grow this channel and reach more people. So when I actually realized that we were in some sort of debt problem was when I was doing one of these times, I realized that my payment was soon gonna be something I could not afford because it was climbing and climbing with each pay period. So once I did some math, I was like, okay, in 3 to 6 months, we're barely going to be able to afford this payment. Within a year, there's no way we can make that payment. So we need to pay down these balances. When I, totaled up all of the balances, I was like, okay, this is insane. There's no way we can do this. We need to find some sort of alternative solution and kind of get this under grips. I think that's step number one. And if you're watching this video, you probably have already been there. So we're definitely on the same page. You realize there's an issue. Now it's like, let's solve it. After I talked to a ton of people, did some research, obviously I watched some videos on YouTube, I came across what's called the debt consolidation program. And it seemed like definitely something we could do. If you're not familiar with what that is, a debt consolidation program essentially takes all your debts and puts it into one payment, while at the same time they negotiate with all these different credit card companies to get you a lower total payment. So let's assume you owe $10,000 in debt. They're going to negotiate and try to get that down to $6,000, $5,000, $8,000, but you won't have to pay the entire 10. And then that includes a fee for them as well. So for instance, if they get it down to $5,000, they're actually going to give the credit card company or whatever $4,000 to keep $1,000 to themselves. But out of your pocket, you're still gonna save a ton of money because you're not paying that entire balance. After looking at a ton of different companies, I decided to go with First Choice Debt Relief just for two reasons. The first one is they had a ton of very high quality reviews on the Business Better Bureau website. And then they also, after I spoke with a ton of different companies, they promised that they would lower my debt the most, which is still somewhat of a abstract figure, but I know that the company is also putting in their fees on top of that. So a lot of the companies were, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 more expensive than they were. So they were not the cheapest, but one of the cheapest, and then partnered with the great reviews is one of the reasons I decided to move forward with them. So the biggest pro to the entire thing was how much we actually ended up paying. So over the course of 3 years, we paid off $57,000 of debt. That is correct. But the amount of money required for us to do so was only $32,000. So First Choice Debt Relief was actually able to save us about $25,000. So instead of us actually having to pay a full 57, we only had to pay 32, which is massive, right? Your case could be a little better, it could be worse. They're obviously going to negotiate, and then they send you an offer like, hey, you know, we spoke with Chase and they're willing to drop it by this amount if you pay by this date. If you have the money, you do it. If you don't have the money, or if you think that you can get a lower payment, they're kind of going to counsel you because they do this for a living, right? So they know kind of what the range is that Chase typically accepts, etc. The other pro that I absolutely loved is the fact that they're very communicative. So if anything happens, they're gonna shoot you a text or an email, they're gonna give you a call. If there's an offer or anything happens with any one of your accounts, they're going to let you know immediately. They also have an online dashboard, which you can literally see all of your creditors, how much you owe each one of them, what are payments being made towards any of them, like when are you actually gonna have this completed. So between the communication and the dashboard, you really have full transparency into what every dollar is being spent on, and kind of you can track your progress. And at any moment, you can actually add funds to it as well, so you can see that progress accelerate. And the third pro that I really like to mention here is the fact that First Choice Debt Relief has like a group of attorneys that they work with. And this is a perfect time to shift into the cons and the negatives about working with the debt consolidation program. So the first, negative surprise is that there are a lot of banks like Discover, American Express, there are a few others that aren't as lenient on letting someone negotiate your debt and essentially taking whatever your balance is, and you assume a much less payment of that. After a couple of weeks or months into working with these guys, I get a letter from I think it was Discover, or it might have been someone else, but they sent you a letter saying like, hey, we're pressing charges, you can't do this, you need to pay this off immediately. So when I got the letter, I was freaking out. I was like, what in the world is going on? I cannot afford to go to jail. No.
We can't go to prison. People get shaved in the joint.
This is not happening, and I'm talking to lawyers. So I told them what was going on, and little did I know, they actually have an entire department and a team of attorneys that are willing to help with that. So, that was obviously a con, because I'm freaking out, no pun intended. And at the same time, it was it's a pro that they're willing to do this. One of the things I wasn't aware of, though, is that they charge a specific fee for you to hire on attorneys. And it's kind of pretty much everyone's process you're gonna have some legal fees, and it's cheaper if you sign up for that special service early on. And it's something that they didn't tell me, and it was aggravating at the time. It was almost like they're kind of taking advantage of a situation, knowing that it was going to happen. So that's just something for you to keep in mind. So the second thing that is problematic, but it's also disguised essentially as a positive, is the fact that you have one payment. So you're not paying, your Capital One's card and your Chase cards and your American Express. You just pay one payment. And that is definitely a pro, right? It's much easier to manage and it's easier, but here's why you only have one payment. So what that means is that you're going to have to stop making the payments, and your accounts are going to go into this not paid, status for 60, 90, 180 days. And they're going to report this to the credit bureaus. So when you're not paying your balances, it's obviously going to affect your credit score. And I'll give you an example. My credit score went from a, mid 700s to a mid 400s. And in the beginning, it completely shocked me. That was another thing that I wasn't aware of. People talked a lot about how working with the debt consolidation program is phenomenal for paying down your balances. No one really talked about that they get to the stage of negotiating with the creditors by you not paying down those balances. I think ultimately you just need to understand that your credit score is gonna look rough for a few years. And in our case, we didn't have any major expenses coming in, and we were looking to budget better and invest our money anyway. So it was well, this is really only gonna force us to not make a massive purchase anyways. So, we were able to essentially weather the storm. So if you really want to pay down your balance, there's a lot of additional things that you can do, right? The very first thing you could do is look into budgeting better. I'm sure that there are a couple of basic things you can cut in any given month, maybe $500, a couple $100 that you're spending on things that maybe you shouldn't be, and then you can take that money and pay it towards your balance. I actually happen to have a guide, an entire guide on budgeting, and I can get that to you for free. Just do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, and then go on Instagram, shoot me a DM, because that's a lot easier to communicate than here on YouTube, and just let me know that you watched the video and you'd like to get the guide for free, and we'll make sure that it gets in your hands. So the second thing you can do is not only play defense with budgeting, you know, saving $5, $10 on coffee per week is great, but where you could really essentially accelerate is playing offense. Let me give you an example. When I was looking to buy my first house, one of the things that I did is I drove Uber. I had a goal, and my goal was to make anywhere from, you know, $30 to $50, $60 every single day. I mean, even if you do that just 5 times a week, you're looking at almost $10,000 a year, which is a lot of money, especially when you're using it down to either pay debt or even invest or do both. And if you add like some weekends or even additional hours to this, you could really accelerate your debt consolidation program or you know, loan pay down. I actually have a clip with a ton of different ways to make money, and these are like ways that I've actually tried, so I'll link that up here if you want to give it a watch. The last thing I'll mention in here is that if you do need to make a purchase and you're looking for ways to increase your credit score, there are a ton of different apps, several of which I've actually used. One of my favorites is Self. Self is essentially a loan. You're going to pay an X number of dollars that you decide with Self every single month. They're going to report that to the credit bureaus. Let's assume it's a $1,000 loan. You're paying $100 for 10 months. At the end of 10 months, they're gonna take a 5-10% fee and give you that $900 back. So it's a forced savings account. You pay a small fee, they're gonna report it to the credit bureaus, and your credit will go up. The other one that you can actually do is Experience Boost. Experience Boost is something that is fairly new, but what they do is they take your utilities, phone payments, maybe even your rent, they report that to the credit bureaus. And although it doesn't necessarily get rolled into your credit score, when someone pulls your credit, they're gonna see that there are like these self-established credit lines that you've been making payments on and that you're consistent on them. So it could help when you need a loan or using your credit for something. If we had the chance to do it all over again, my wife and I talk about this all the time, there's no way we would have let anyone lend any money, especially at such a critical time in our lives, right? Where we're just getting started together. And then the other thing is we would not have had such a big wedding. Like we just wouldn't. We would have invited a lot less people, different venues, like everything would have been different about it. I'm not saying we regret it, I'm just saying we would have done things a lot different. The cost of debt is much more than just interest and, you know, the monetary. There's a physical aspect to it and a toll, right? There's an emotional toll to it. And I mean, there's a mental toll. It's the cost of your peace, and it's the cost of your restless night. It's just not worth it. All right, so if you're young and you're watching this, you already have an advantage. Do yourself a favor. Don't get into debt, into bad debt, credit card debt, and don't do it just for the sake of trying to impress people or, you know, because you want to do and live lavishly. Just don't do it. Just avoid it. It's going to save you a ton of stress. It's going to save you a ton of time and money trying to pay back those loans. The other advice I'll give you is like learn about financial principles and guidelines as early as possible, because not only can that save you hundreds of thousands of dollars, it can do the exact opposite, right? Which is actually give you hundreds of thousands of dollars while you're investing in building up your own portfolio. And if you're older and you already have some debt, I want to help you. I want to help you kind of get some momentum going so you can like literally put this chapter behind you. And here's what we're gonna do. I would like to get on the phone with you and we'll call one of your creditors, credit cards, whatever, and we'll make a payment of $1,000 to help you pay down either an entire credit card, one of those credit cards, and it may be a lot to you, maybe it's not. This is just a way that I can help you so you can start, you know, getting the ball rolling on this. If you'd like to participate and if you'd like to kind of enter this, I obviously can't do it for everyone. Take a look at the description below on how we're gonna make that happen. All right, so if you sticked around to the end of the video, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. And if you haven't subscribed, what are you doing? I was looking at some of my analytics and like most of the people that watch my videos aren't actually subscribed. If you're not subscribed and you just have it set in your heart that you're not going to subscribe, could you do me the favor and tell me why? What am I doing wrong? what's wrong with my hair that you're not willing to subscribe. Just let me know. Thank you guys. I appreciate it, and I hope you have a great day.